3,500 years ago. Colossal cities like Uruk, Babylon, and Thebes. The birthplace of civilization, people woke up to a workday controlled by powers that never slept. The kings, the priests, and the demanding gods. You started dragging water at dawn. You worked until the last bit of light died, and you paid crushing taxes just to be allowed to live your life. In this episode, you and I are going to live one full day inside an ancient city, from the first bucket of water to the last cup of stale beer, to truly see how exhausting and relentless their 9-to-5 really was. Details varied by place and century, but the daily grind looked shockingly similar across these immense ancient cities. We're stepping back into the noise, the heat, and the inescapable presence of the empire. This is the Empire Timeline on the Saturated Show. The city doesn't wake up gently. It explodes into humid, dusty life. The first sound isn't an alarm, but the dull, rhythmic scraping of feet climbing down from flat, cool clay rooftops. This is where most people slept during the hot season to catch the precious breeze. Now, before the sun hits the valley floor, the narrow, winding alleys are already crowded. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke, baking bread, and the unavoidable, sharp odor of uncollected waste. The first essential task is water. Survival depends on it. Look down the street. It's chaos. A long queue is already forming at the public well or the canal steps. The poor, the servants, and the general laborers all carry heavy clay jars or leather sacks. Water is heavy, and this task, hauling it from the canal steps, is a brutal, immediate strain on the back and shoulders. If you are rich, your household is silent. Your servants do the hauling for you. But for the rest of us, the sun is already beating down and we're tired before we've even earned a single coin. And then comes breakfast. For the vast majority, breakfast is humble and purely functional. A thick, coarse porridge or a piece of day-old flatbread may be eaten with an onion or a few dried dates. And of course, the ever-present, low-alcohol beer. It's thick, it's nutritious, and crucially, it's safer to drink than the river water. You wash it down, knowing this simple fuel must last you until the midday heat breaks. For the scribe or the high-ranking priest, the scene is different. They might have soft wheat bread, honey, or perhaps a small piece of salted fish. They eat slowly, discussing the day's appointments while their servants prepare their fresh linen robes. But for the common man or woman, the physical demands of the day have already begun. The pressure is already on. This city is not logically planned. It's a dense, chaotic labyrinth. The streets are narrow, dusty, and often cluttered. Housing is built in tight insula-style blocks, creating a hive of activity. The one thing that dominates the entire skyline, dwarfing everything else, are the massive, soaring walls of the temple or the fortified palace. These structures, built through millions of hours of labor, clearly state who holds the power. The city is a strict social pyramid. At the very top, you have the elite, the royal family, high priests and governors. They live in sprawling courtyard houses built to keep the noise out, and the wealth in. Below them is the middle tier, successful merchants, craftsmen, and the all-important scribes. The scribes' family lives well, their house slightly larger. They deal in words, and in this world, words equal power. Further down is the vast, sweating laborer class. The farmers, porters, and builders. They live in cramped multi-family rooms, often just one or two small dark chambers shared by entire families. And at the very base are the slaves, property, living solely to serve. Let's meet our neighbours. The scribe's son. He's already clutching his clay tablet and reed stylus, heading to the Ba tablet house or school. His family hopes he becomes a pillar of the bureaucracy. The potter. His workshop is already firing up, trying to finish a massive jar needed for an oil shipment before the midday deadline. The beer woman, tavern keeper. Enlil Nini is sweeping the front of her tiny shop. Her place will be buzzing tonight, a center of gossip and the unofficial economy. This density, this proximity of rich and poor, creates the city's energy. Everyone is watching everyone else. As the sun climbs higher, the market begins to open with a sudden, deafening rush. The market, Karom, is the city's financial heart. Vendors shout their prices in a cacophony of dialects. You can buy anything here: freshly harvested grain, dried fish, linen, pigments, and copper tools. The challenge here is cheating. Law codes like Hammurabi's go into meticulous detail trying to stop it, setting harsh punishments for using false scales or watering down grain. But every vendor here has a clever way to scoop a little less than you pay for. The law tries to enforce justice, but the market runs on eternal suspicion. And who keeps order? Security is visible everywhere. The massive city gates have been swung open, guarded by bored, heavily armed soldiers. Watchtowers loom over the walls. Patrols walk the central streets. Here's the wild part. People often fear the officials more than the thieves. A tax collector with a soldier behind him is a far greater threat to your survival than a pickpocket. The police and military are primarily instruments of the state, ensuring taxes are collected and power is maintained. The city is now fully awake. The work is relentless, physical, and specialized. And remember, there is no weekend. Only religious festivals occasionally grant a day of rest. The Vengeance of Empire. The farmer, perhaps named Shulgi, spends his day negotiating the intricate, life-giving irrigation channels. He moves mud, clears blockages, and directs the precious water to his fields. Every drop is controlled by the temple or the palace administration. The twist. He's not truly working for himself. A huge share of his granas, often close to half the harvest, is immediately delivered to the temple granary as tax. He is merely an extension of the state's central planning. The urban laborer, building the gods' walls. The vast majority of the city's male population falls into this category, the nameless, sweating laborer. Today they might be hauling stones for the new ziggurat terrace or digging out a clogged canal. This is corvée labor, forced state service. The empire presents it as a sacred duty. But it is compulsory, unpaid service. The twist. This forced labor is their tax payment. They spend weeks, often far from home, building walls. They are paid in rations, mostly coarse barley, which is exactly what they are already supposed to be growing. They are trapped in a closed loop, working just to pay the tax that allows them to work more. The scribe, the middle manager of the gods. The scribe, a man like Aradnana, has the only job that is primarily mental. He sits in a shaded temple office, recording everything. Tax collections, grain shipments, legal disputes. He is the middle manager of the Duz. The twist. His life is easier, but the risks are higher. A scribe is paid well, but a mistake on a tablet, a single misplaced number, a typo in a contract, can ruin an entire city's tax harvest or spark a scandal. The punishment for clerical error is often severe, sometimes even death. His job isn't boring, it's high-stakes accounting with a sword over his head. The craftsman, pride and seals. The bronze smith or potters works in small, loud, smoky workshops. They work under a guild-like system, training young apprentices who spend years doing the hardest work. The twist. The craftsman has true professional pride. Every finished product is marked with his unique personal seal. This seal is his brand and his warranty. If the product fails, the craftsman is held personally responsible under the law. Quality is enforced by reputation, backed by the threat of public disgrace. The soldier's guard, pay and terror. The soldier spends most of his day miserably bored, standing in the heat, watching the endless stream of people at the gate. The twist. His pay is guaranteed, mainly in rations. But his life flips instantly from mind-numbing boredom to sudden, terrifying violence. A quick border skirmish, an order to quell a riot, or the sudden terror of being deployed thousands of miles away. If this is the good life inside the walls, what does that say about everyone outside them? The city is an all-consuming machine. By midday, the city is choked by heat. The unrelenting sun forces activity to slow down. Shutters are drawn, people retreat into the shade. Only the most desperate laborers continue their work. Lunch is usually simple: leftover bread, a cheap stew, or dried fish. Cheap street stalls pop up near busy corners, selling hot sauces and thick beer to the weary workers. Midday is also the moment for gossip and the shadow economy. Resting laborers trade whispers about war rumors, taxes, and scandals in the temples. These small bursts of shared information are the city's unofficial media. It's also when petty crime peaks. This is the moment for pickpockets to strike the drowsy traveler, or for the beer woman to use a slightly undersized cup. Law codes threaten harsh punishments, fines, public humiliation, or even having your ear cut off. The fear of this is what keeps the system functioning, even in the midday slump. As the heat begins its slow decline, the most stressful activity begins: the negotiation with the empire. The afternoon is dedicated to taxes, rent, and debt. The tax collector is not interested in coins. He wants grain, labor, or animals. Every cow, every sack of barley is meticulously recorded on clay tablets. The temple is the biggest creditor, the palace the biggest landlord, and both demand payment. This system creates the terrifying debt trap. If a farmer has a single bad harvest, he must borrow grain from the temple. The interest rates are brutal. If he fails to repay, he starts losing his land. If he still cannot pay, he loses his family. Debt slavery is a constant threat. He might be forced to give a son or daughter as a temporary hostage or a debt slave to the creditor for a fixed period. The fear of losing a child to debt defines the life of the common man. Look. Down in the central square, a public punishment scene is unfolding. A man is being whipped or branded. The crowd is watching, silent, nervous, afraid. It's a teaching moment. The empire doesn't need to brand everyone. It just needs to brand one man and make sure everyone else sees it. Fear is the cheapest, most effective tool of control. After the whipping stops, the blood is cleaned. The crowd disperses quickly. The brutal display is simply part of normal life, a constant reminder of the consequences of failing the system. As the sun dips, the city changes tone. The markets are shutting down. The massive gates begin their slow, grinding preparation to shut for the night. The light is golden. The air now carries the warm, comforting smell of cooking fires. Inside the homes, life is cramped but focused. The rooms are small with simple furniture. Evening chores begin. The women are often grinding grain on a heavy stone quern, one of the most physically demanding chores of the day. Tools are repaired, nets are mended. Family dynamics center on survival. Arguments flare up over money and the worry about upcoming costs, but this shared struggle also creates unbreakable bonds. The family unit is the only safety net they have against the crushing demands of the empire. Once darkness falls and the gates are secured, the official city sleeps, but the underground life begins to bloom. The beer houses are buzzing. They drink beer and ale, escaping the memory of the day. The music is loud, a simple lyre or lute, drums. The conversation is rough, and the atmosphere is thick with gossip. Games are a major part of the fun. People huddle over board games like the royal game of Uruk or Senate, simple ancient games of strategy and luck. Dice are thrown and bets are made. The shadow economy is in full swing here. This is where the official rulebook quietly breaks. Debts are negotiated away from the scribe's official tablet. Illegal gambling dens operate in back rooms. Stolen goods are quietly traded, and the gods are still awake. Religion at night takes over the soundscape. You might hear the distant, haunting sound of a temple procession, or the sound of special festival rituals. Every citizen performs small, quiet personal offerings for a safe night. The beer house is where a lot of these unwritten human desires play out, away from the stone-cold eyes of the palace. The night deepens. In the hot season, most people climb back up to their flat rooftops to find relief from the stifling heat. You lie on a simple mat. You feel the gentle breeze. You see the incredible clear expanse of stars. The stars that the temple priests use to predict the king's destiny. You can hear your neighbours talking softly across the roof lines. But even sleep carries risks. Thieves are most active after midnight. Stray dogs roam the alleys. Sudden, loud patrols might sweep through the neighbourhood. And the dangers of fire or attack always lurk in the back of the mind. One last thought. Their 9 to 5 never really ends. Even in their sleep, the shadow of the empire is in their debts and in their dreams. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and the water queue will already be forming. So what did we learn from our day inside the ancient city? We learned that life was a brutal physical contract. Work was relentless, weekends were non-existent, and every small pleasure was hard-won. The constant presence of the temple and the palace meant you were always negotiating your survival against a power that knew everything about you. The system was certainly more immediate and harsh than our modern life, but the core pressure is the same. The constant fight for small freedoms within an inescapable, complex structure of power. The interface changes, but the struggle to pay the bills does not. Next time, we're keeping the focus human. After a day of hard work, what did they do to unwind? Join us for sex, food, and forbidden fun in the ancient world, where we zoom in on the rules, the taboos, and the surprising pleasures that were only hinted at in this exhausting day in the city. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and join the Empire Timeline next week.